distinguished ministers, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our session, Doing Business in Turkiye. My name is Serdar Turan. I'm the editor-in-chief for Harvard Business Review Turkish edition, and I will have the honor to moderate this session. Before we start, let me walk you through the outline of the session. We will be starting with our guest of honor, Mr. Şimşek. He will be delivering his opening speech, and then I will invite two distinguished panelists to deliver their presentations as well. And finally, and luckily, if we are good with the time management, we will have a very brief Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, as Harvard Business Review, we believe that in every 25 to 30 years, business world goes to a new cycle, goes to a new era. And this era change is always triggering a paradigm shift, many paradigm shifts, if I may. And during these paradigm shifts, the formulas we used to apply, the methodologies we used to apply, the assumptions that we take are not valid, are not working anymore. So we need to rewrite our narratives, we need to redefine our competitive advantages, we need to redesign the systems that we use to create value. And today we are living in these times. Maybe it can sound a little bit chaotic, but these times also bring a lot of opportunities. And with its young generation, with its very vibrant and entrepreneurial business environment, and with its very strong economic infrastructure, Turkey is just sitting in the middle of this pool of opportunities. And today we will be focusing on how to realize these opportunities, of course, with a unique perspective of empowerment of women. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to invite our speaker of honor. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Minister of Treasury and Finance of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Mehmet Şimşek.
Good afternoon. Minister, Irene, of course, ladies, and I assume there are a few gentlemen here. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you in Istanbul. What a pleasant gathering. First of all, I'd like to thank Irene for bringing us together, and I hope you have productive, trip and summit. I'm expected to tell you about doing business in Turkey. So I'll go through a number of slides, been given about half an hour, I assume, and I'll try to, make a strong case for why you should consider investing in Turkey. So let me begin. When we look at the global picture, near term, of course, there is this war, commodity price shock, potentially rising global inflation, tighter global financial conditions, slowing global economy, and on the back of trade fragmentation, a second potential China shock. So these are all short-term concerns, uncertainties. When we look at beyond short-term, when we look at medium-term, again, there are quite a few headwinds, challenges, but also opportunities. Geopolitical tensions and conflicts now are the new normal of this world, unfortunately. Trade fragmentation, protectionism, or deglobalization, whatever way you put it, this is also seems like a structural trend. But we also have AI that offers immense potential for productivity growth and prosperity for humanity. But of course, AI is going to be transformative for some and disruptive for others. High global indebtedness is another headwind for global economy. Aging world population is another challenge. And of course, impending climate crisis, the need for green transition. So as you can see, There's plenty to talk about globally, but I'm sure you're going to cover all these issues. I'm here to tell you about Turkey. So I'll skip the global challenges. Why Turkey? Why should you consider, investing in Turkey? First of all, this is a large economy. Don't take my word for it. Let me show you. There are very few countries around the world that have a bigger GDP than all of its neighbors combined. So this is rare. There are only, as you can see, handful of countries painted in red that have bigger economy than all of its neighbors. Turkey's GDP is $1.6 trillion as of last year at current market exchange rate. But if you use purchasing power parity, it's over $4 trillion. So this is a sizable economy, and that's why you should consider taking advantage of this market. But you may say, okay, you may be a large economy, but is it growing? See, if it's not growing, what's the point? Well, it's also growing. I mean, we live in a shock-prone world. There are global issues, but we've had more than our fair share of geopolitical dislocations in this part of the world. Conflicts, wars, tensions, domestic, regional, global. Despite all of them, if you look at the past 23 years, Turkish economy grew on average by 5.3% in real terms. So if you were to take the beginning of President Erdogan's term, if you take that as 100 and extrapolate in constant prices, in real terms, Turkish GDP has gone up from 100 to 328. World economy has grown up from 100 to 222. So there's a massive outperformance. Similarly, there is also strong outperformance relative to our own peers, meaning emerging markets, excluding China, India. China, India are planet size. They're big. So if you exclude that, global emerging markets have gone up from 100 to 231. So as you can see, Turkey is not just a large economy, but it's a growing one. So that's my second message. Again, if you look at our parts of the world, excluding Western Hemisphere, as you can see, Turkey feels like it's right at the center. Actually, according to Google, there is a town in Turkey. It's the center of the earth. But let's put that aside. This yellow line is the middle corridor. It takes 18 days to connect or to transport a cargo from, let's say, Beijing to London, only 18 days. If you go through Suez Canal, it takes 35 days. The red one doesn't exist. That's the new development road that we are investing in, and that would also be equally attractive. So, connectivity, we are right at the center of it. But it's not just roads, it's actually energy as well. I mean, look at this map. I think this war is going to trigger investments in new corridors, new trade corridors, new pipelines, and stronger connectivity. The best antidote against fragmentation is regional integration, is to invest in connectivity and invest in regional integration. And that's exactly what Turkey is doing. That's why if you are in Turkey, how about energy costs? Nowadays, it's quite topical because there is war, there is supply shock. Industry, electricity prices, we have one of the lowest in our part of the world. So Turkey, per kilowatt hour, industry use electricity costs 10 euro cents compared to, let's say, for many Europeans, over 30 euro cents. and many of the emerging markets are more expensive. How about natural gas? It's similar. We have one of the cheapest natural gas supplied to industry. So if you are operating in Turkey, again, these are key to competitiveness. We have also a very large pool of human capital and increasingly more qualified. Every year we get over 900,000 university graduates, and quite a few of them with postgraduate degrees in computer science, computer engineering, and IT. So if you're talking about AI, digital transformation, there's plenty of talent in Turkey. Infrastructure, we've invested very heavily. We've invested $355 billion over the past 23 years in infrastructure. And don't take my word for it, I'll show you a map. This is the map of Turkey's highways, multi-lane roads in the year 2000. This is the map in 2025. A little bit of a difference. As you can see, we have almost increased the multi-lane roads, highways, motorways, dual carriage highways from 6,000 kilometers to over 30,000 kilometers. So infrastructure is there. How about airports? Similarly, we have almost tripled the number of airports in Turkey, both in size and in numbers. Clearly, some of the best connections are through Turkey. Manufacturing. Turkey have a very strong manufacturing culture. If you look at relative to per capita GDP, we are at par with Asian tigers. So relative to our per capita, we are really a major manufacturing house. What is the problem? We need to move up the value chain. And that's why we're investing in helping the industry transform into more medium, high, and high tech. One of the key industries in Turkey that has really developed very fast and is going to help the rest of industry develop is defense industry. Thanks to our NATO allies, they did not give us the equipment we needed, and we invested in our own indigenous military industrial complex capacity. Turkey has moved from being one of the leading importers of defense to one of the leading exporters. And this is the industry in the future that's going to have a lot of, let's say, spin-offs into private sector, as like from health tech, agri-tech, biotech. So if you are using AI and producing state-of-art, let's say, defense equipments, surely you can move to other areas. And that's exactly what is likely to happen in Turkey. How about services? Well, in services, also relative to our per capita GDP, we're in good shape. And I can show you a few things. In tourism, we are number 4th largest in the world. Last year, we attracted over 64 million international tourists. Italy is number 5th, and there were 62 million. Of course, number 1 is France, you get Spain, and then USA, and then Turkey. So as you can see, we moved from 20th place 2.5 decades ago to number 4th today. How about medical tourism? Now, I thought that I'd put my own picture, but my twin daughters don't want me. So I picked Shakespeare. This is Shakespeare after visiting Turkey, after having hair implant. Seriously, they're called Turkish hairline. Yes. So medical tourism is a big industry and growing industry in Turkey. We have more than 50 internationally accredited hospitals and very competitive. So medical tourism is big because in the future, as you know, now they're talking about people living through 120 years, 150 years, thanks to AI and all these developments in healthcare. So clearly, silver economy is going to be a big area, and Turkey is right there in terms of elderly care and medical tourism. How about Turkish soap operas? I'm not sure if you watched any of them, but apparently we're number 3rd in the world in terms of soap opera exports. So there you go. And in gaming ecosystem, again, we're pretty strong. By the way, in the gaming ecosystem, I cannot skip this, we have already produced 3 unicorns and 6 or 7 $100 million plus exits. So clearly it's a big one. Fintech ecosystem is equally strong and is growing. We are a major global construction powerhouse. If you look at the Global Engineering News magazine, which ranks top contractors globally, we are 2nd to China. And we have done projects in 138 countries. So, over the next decade or so, I think a lot of countries will have to be rebuilt. Sadly, there are wars. I wish there weren't, but there are. And so, you should partner with Turkish companies to rebuild Ukraine and other places. Geopolitics is a big topic nowadays. Turkey remains anchored to the West because we're a member of Council of Europe, EU accession candidate, member of NATO, the list goes on. But increasingly with strong ties with the East. So West and East, there is synergy here. We're avoiding conflicts in our region, building mediation capacity. We've helped Armenia, Azerbaijan make up. Russia, Ukraine has been proven difficult. Iran, US, we're helping, we're working on it. Israel, Gaza, and all, the list is long. But we also have invested heavily in defense, and we have strong deterrence. By the way, this year, we're not only having Global Women's Summit, but we're also having NATO Summit, we're having COP31, and we're also having a Turkic State Summit this year in Turkey. So it's year of summits. How about soft power? Soft power-wise, again, if you are based in Turkey, I think you'll be welcome in most parts of the world. First of all, in the official development assistance, Turkey is among the top 10. If you look at connectivity, Turkish Airlines flies to the most destinations globally. And if you look at diplomatic footprint, Turkey is the 3rd largest, right after China, United States. So as you can see, there's also soft power component. You know the famous economics professor, Milton Friedman. Once he said, only a crisis, doesn't matter what it is, actual or perceived, produces real change. Now, we are faced with a war, with a supply shock. How can we afford to waste this crisis? Of course we cannot waste. So, we're doing reforms. And here we go. Industrial transformation, I've already alluded to move up the value chain. We are encouraging companies to invest in high tech and medium high. Speeding up green transition is not a choice, it's a necessity. Digital transformation, equally a necessity. We are investing in railways significantly to decarbonize and make Turkey more competitive. And of course, we have also some special framework to lure talent, capital, and investments. So we've got a number of programs, we call them industrial policy initiatives, just tailor-made. If you're planning to invest, we'll hold your hands. Green transition for Turkey is a necessity. We paid $1.1 trillion for importing oil and gas and derivatives over the past 23 years. We don't want to pay that much. That's why we're investing heavily in solar, wind, geothermal, and all sorts of renewable energy. And guess what? We're making good progress. For example, so far this year, almost 58% of electricity generation is renewables in Turkey. And capacity-wise, it's over 60%. Digital transformation, we are ahead of emerging markets in terms of AI preparedness, but we want to catch up with advanced economies. And that's why we're investing in 5G+, expanding fiber capacity, and we're doing hyperscaler data centers, investing in nuclear power to power, as a base load. This is connecting manufacturing hubs to the ports via railways. This is one of the top projects that we're working on it right now. So here we go, the new investment framework. By the way, it was approved by the parliament, and last night it was signed off by the president. So now it's law, and it is there. What does it include? Well, first of all, corporate tax rate, only 12.5%. One of the lowest corporate tax around the world for manufacturers. That's it. So we prioritize manufacturing in industry and, of course, in agriculture. Whether you're Turkish or international, you benefit from 12.5% corporate tax rate. But if you are doing services exports, 100% tax exemption, 100%. No tax, no corporate tax. So whether you're providing education or software or medical tourism or engineering or design, doesn't matter. If you're doing transit trade, buying from one country, selling to another country, but operating out of Turkey, 100% tax exemption. There you go. So no tax, no corporate tax. How about if you're a multinational company, having your base in Istanbul, in Turkey? Well, you get not only corporate tax exemption, you get income tax exemption. There you go. You may say, well, but it's not easy to do business in Turkey because you've got such a strong bureaucracy. After all, Byzantine and then Ottoman and then, Well, clearly we are aware of that. And that's why we've set up one-stop shop for investors. They will help you with company formation. They will help you with work and residence permits, tax, social security, all stuff that you need. Don't take my word for it. We really mean business. But if you're an individual and if you really like living in Turkey, whether Black Sea or Bodrum or Antalya, wherever, well, guess what? You get 20-year complete tax exemption on your foreign income and only 1% inheritance tax. So this is the best offering that you can get globally in terms of duration and coverage. Seriously, I don't know any other better offering. How about startups? Some of you may remember the old airport. We call it Atatürk Airport. There's a massive terminal building. Well, we're converting that terminal building to a startup campus. And how are we going to fill that in? Well, guess what? You can set up your company digitally and remotely, run your company digitally and remotely. We provide tax-efficient employee stock option plans and is venture capital friendly. So, I still have 4 minutes, okay? So I cannot not tell you about some macro problems. By the way, we have some problems. We have some macro challenges. And since mid-2023, we're trying to address them. So we have a program, we say macroeconomic stabilization and reform program. I've already talked about reforms, but I need to tell you a little bit about stabilization because after all, there's high inflation in this country. How do you deal with that? So there you go. This is my last bit. First of all, the program has a few priorities. Price stability, meaning bringing inflation down to low single digits on a lasting basis. That's the essence of the program. Second, we've already achieved fiscal discipline. Sustainable current account balance. This year, it's a bit, current account deficit will widen, but that's on the back of oil and gas. War will be over at some point. Oil prices will get back to 60s, possibly, maybe lower. Who knows? If Venezuela and Iran are back pumping more oil, who knows? So Turkey would be one of the biggest beneficiaries. The key is in reforms, competitiveness, governance, and institutional strength. That's where we need to make further progress. So, to keep it short, inflation is falling. It peaked, a few years ago. It's down to low 30s. We'll end the year probably, hopefully, in mid-20s. Worst case scenario, according to market estimates, high 20s. But it's still progress. In a year like this, it's not that bad. But we're still high. We need to sustain. We're going to stay the course. Secondly, fiscal discipline. There was a massive earthquake in 2023. We've spent $93 billion on reconstruction, and despite that, we've reduced fiscal deficit from about 5% to about 2.9% last year. And this year, despite oil shock, highly likely deficit will be around 3%. By the way, Turkey's debt to GDP ratio is 24%. Global emerging market average is 74%. So we're really in good shape fiscally. Not because I'm the finance minister, it's because historically, President Erdogan and the ruling party has always attached a great importance to fiscal discipline. External imbalance is typically Turkey's Achilles heel, soft belly or big challenge. But that's also improved. This year is temporarily deteriorating, but it's manageable. 3%, we can live with it. Growth has temporarily slowed down. Why? Because we have multiple shocks and our trading partners are not growing fast. You see, I still have 1 minute, 26 seconds. Once again, I hope I've been of any help, making your day or summit a little bit more colorful, macro-wise. Seriously, we have challenges, but President Erdogan and the government is focused. We are focused. We really would like to address those challenges and make it much more easier to do business in this country. We're not perfect. We're nowhere near being perfect, but progress is key. Perfection, as you know, is the enemy of progress. Progress is essential, and we are making good progress. We're not there yet, but we're really making good progress. Once again, I'd like to thank you for being here. Enjoy Istanbul. We fixed the weather for you, I hope. And don't get stuck in this hotel, hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'm sure everyone in the room is convinced that investing in Turkey is not a choice but a necessity after the presentation that you delivered. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, Turkey attracts attention not only with the deep-rooted history that makes us very resilient, but also we have very strong wings that allow us to discover new horizons, to discover new opportunities, and to grow. So this is a great, great potential that Turkey has uniquely. This potential also creates significant window of opportunity for every investor that are trying to capture and create value. Now let's take a closer look to that potential through the role of the woman in business. The next speaker that I would like to invite is the proud first woman chairperson of Turkish Capital Markets Association, CEO and board member at QNB Invest, Pamir Karagöz. Pamir Hanım, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Esteemed ministers, distinguished guests, and media, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be here with you today. My sincere thanks to Irene and the Global Women Summit for bringing together such an extraordinary group of leaders from around the world. Despite regional tensions, so many women leaders still chose to travel to Turkey and be here today. I think that says everything about the power, resilience, and determination of this community. To all of our guests joining us from around the world, welcome to Turkey. We are delighted to have you here. Today, I want to tell you Turkey's story from a slightly different angle. Not only as a geography, not only as an emerging market, not only as an investment case, but as a country built around 4 recurring themes: production, resilience, connectivity, and untapped potential. And in this story, women are not a side topic. They are part of the foundation, historically, socially, and economically. So let me start with a simple question. If Turkey had a gender, would it be female? The answer may lie in the story of Anatolia. Anatolia means the land where the sun rises, a symbol of birth, renewal, and beginnings. In Turkish cultural memory, Anatolia also evokes ana, mother, fertility, continuity, and production. And as the birthplace of Kibele, one of the earliest mother goddess figures, this land carries a deep legacy of resilience and creation. But the point here is not mythology, it's continuity. From ancient resilience to modern productivity, Turkey continues to produce, adapt, and transform. But in modern Turkey, the female story did not remain only symbolic. Atatürk's modernization agenda institutionalized women's public role early, not only as mothers, but as voters, professionals, and contributors to national development. And this matters for our story today, because the Republic positioned women as part of the national development model very early. And the ambition did not stay in the 1930s. Over time, Turkey's transformation moved from symbols to institutions, from institutions to society, and from society to the economy. After this long journey from Anatolia to the Republic to modernization, where does Turkey stand today? Too often, countries are described through a single headline: oil, manufacturing, tourism, technology. Turkey is harder to summarize because Turkey is not built on a single growth engine. It's built on diversification. It has scale with a GDP of around $1.6 trillion. It has demographics with 86 million people. It offers strong growth with a long-term GDP profile of 6.3% CAGR. That is why it's not just about growth. It's about the structure behind the growth. Turkey has been one of the stronger growth stories among emerging markets, supported by both scale and momentum. But the key point is the composition of that growth. Turkey's economy is structurally diversified with services, industry, and agriculture all contributing to the growth base. This breadth matters. It reduces reliance on any single sector or external demand cycle. Combined with resilient domestic demand, Turkey's diversified industry and service base make the economy less vulnerable through economic cycles. So diversification is not just a theme here. It is the resilient operating model. And this diversified model starts with one of Anatolia's oldest strengths: the ability to produce from land, climate, and continuity. Agriculture is Turkey's oldest production engine and one of its most globally connected. Let me make this tangible. How many of you like Nutella? I see a few smiles already. A significant share of the hazelnuts behind Nutella comes from Turkey. So when we say from fields to global shelves, it's quite literal. Turkey's role is also strategic in food logistics. The Black Sea Food Corridor showed that Turkey's geography can matter not only for trade, but also for global food security. And women remain central to this system. In Turkey, we often call the land the Mother Earth. It's a fitting metaphor. because of the soil, and women have the power to nurture, sustain, and create the future. But Turkey's production story does not stop at the field. It moves from agricultural continuity into industrial scale. Turkey has a deep industrial base and is integrated into European and regional supply chains, while 43% of Turkey's exports passes through EU borders. The country is active across defense, automotive, white goods, machinery, chemicals, and other manufacturing verticals. This is not a narrow production model. It's a diversified industrial platform. For global companies, Turkey offers a combination of production capability, supplier networks, logistics access, and export orientation. If you open a refrigerator in Europe, Turkey may already be somewhere in the supply chain. But the next phase is not only about producing more, it's about producing smarter. That means more R&D, more engineering, more high-value exports, and more technology-linked production. This is where human capital becomes critical, including women in engineering and leadership roles. This brings us naturally to the next capability frontier: defense, aviation, and technology. Long before drones became fashionable and defense technology made the headlines, Turkey had already produced a symbol of aviation ambition. Her name was Sabiha Gökçen. She is widely recognized as the world's first female combat pilot. Today, that spirit has evolved into a modern defense tech ecosystem. Defense exports increased to $10 billion in 2025. The strongest proof point is UAVs and drones, where Turkey commands roughly 65% of global UAV exports. So the message is simple. Turkey's early aviation legacy is evolving into next-generation defense leadership, with technology-led exports becoming a new growth engine. In addition to goods and technology, there is also something Turkey exports extremely well: experience. Think of a country. In the morning, you can walk through 2,000 years of history. In the afternoon, receive a world-class medical treatment. And in the evening, sit down to a magnificent feast. Not many countries can offer all of this in a single day. This is the strength of Turkey's tourism model. It's not one-dimensional. People may come for the history, the coast, the shopping, the wellness, or the healthcare. But very often, Turkish cuisine turns the trip from a visit into an experience. So Turkey does not only export goods, it exports experiences and gastronomy in one of the strongest emotional anchors of that export story. Think of a country where you can swim on the coast and within a few hours be in the mountains for skiing. Connectivity scales the model globally. Turkey accounts for around 5% of global air traffic as a major transit hub, while Istanbul ranks at the top of Europe's leading airports in direct connectivity. But as we all know, tourism is not just about arrivals. It's about spending, repeat visits, brand attachment, and soft power. So Turkey converts geography, culture, healthcare, cuisine, and aviation connectivity into recurring economic value. And Turkey's experience economy does not stop when tourists leave. Sometimes we reach audiences before they ever buy a flight ticket. Yes, some audiences discover Turkey through trade, others discover it through Netflix. Did you know that Turkey is the world's third largest TV series exporter, and our productions reach audiences in more than 150 countries, engaging an estimated 800 million plus viewers globally. Turkish TV series create familiarity with Turkey's cities, lifestyle, and family culture. This is soft power at scale. And this matters economically because cultural familiarity lowers the distance between a country and a consumer. A destination becomes recognizable. A city becomes aspirational. A brand becomes easier to understand. After culture, connectivity, food, there is also something that is worth mentioning. Turkey is emerging as a gaming hub, supported by strong local talent and rising investment activity. The sector produced Turkey's first gaming unicorn with Peak Games, which was acquired for $1.8 billion, followed by Dream Games as another major gaming unicorn. Together, they demonstrate Turkey's ability to create globally scalable digital businesses and reinforce the country's growing role in the digital economy. Gaming adds a digital export layer to Turkey's investment story. So far, we have looked at what Turkey produces and exports. Now, let's look at why its location makes all of this more powerful. Geography is one of the few assets a country cannot change. Fortunately, Turkey inherited a very valuable one. Within around a 4-flight radius, Turkey provides access to 1.3 billion people, a market of roughly 32 trillion USD GDP, and major trade corridors across Europe, MENA, and Central Asia. Turkish Airlines also connects 356 destinations in 132 countries, turning this geography into real operating connectivity. Around Turkey, you have a very unusual concentration of global economic strengths. Europe brings capital, purchasing power, and trade. The Middle East and Africa brings energy reserves. Asia brings manufacturing scale and trade flows. This is why Turkey matters for companies. It's close to customers, close to suppliers, close to energy routes, and close to capital. And when location is combined with airports, ports, roads, industrial zones, customs union access, and human capital, geography becomes economic value. But access alone is not enough. To convert geography into growth, you need people. And that brings us to Turkey's demographic advantage. You need people who can work, consume, build, adapt, and move with change. Turkey's median age is around 34, compared with 45 in the EU. So our population is about 10 years younger than EU on average. A younger population supports labor supply, domestic consumption, entrepreneurship, and technology adoption. But the real story here is not only age, it's adaptability. Turkey has a workforce that is used to building, shifting, and adjusting quickly. One indicator is labor market reallocation. Around 67% of workers are re-employed within 12 months, compared with around 30% in the OECD. And in an AI-driven world, this matters. AI will not only reward countries with capital, it will reward countries with adaptable talent. Because technology cycles move fast, the key question is not only who has the technology, but who can absorb it, reorganize around it, and scale it. And this brings us to the most important opportunity in Turkey's demographic story. The full potential is not yet activated. Turkey has the demographic base. It has entrepreneurial culture. It has workforce flexibility. But the full potential is not yet activated. Let me put the opportunity in one number. If Turkey reached European levels of female labor force participation, our GDP could be approximately 22% higher. 22%. Few economic reforms offer that magnitude of upside. That is not a social gap. It's a measurable economic upside. If more women participate in the workforce, Turkey expands its labor supply, household income, consumption capacity, saving space, and productivity potential. And the next question becomes, where do income, savings, and wealth go? That is where capital markets become important. Turkey's capital markets are going through a structural deepening phase. The domestic investor base expanded to 12.2 million in 2025. This matters because Turkey is gradually moving from a savings culture toward a broader investment culture. Wealth accumulation is also supporting this transition. Turkey's real economy raised around $10 billion in funding from household wealth through IPOs, showing how domestic savings are being converted into productive capital. Now, the woman angle is important too. Female investors increased to 35% of the equity investor base. But for companies and investors, the next layer is critical. Does the operating environment support investment? That brings us to regulation. A country may have scale, geography, industrial debt, and demographics. But for investors and companies, those advantages become meaningful only when they are supported by regulation. Based on Tax Competitiveness Index, Turkey ranks third amongst its peer group with a score of 76 out of 100. Turkey is also strengthening its regulatory framework across fintech, digital payments, open banking, crypto assets, and technology-enabled financial services, creating a more predictable environment for innovation and investment. That matters for global companies. It means Turkey is not positioned only as a traditional manufacturing or consumption market. It is also building the regulatory infrastructure required for digital finance, new technology platforms, and next-generation capital market activity. So Turkey is becoming a country where companies can operate with scale, but also with increasing regulatory visibility. And investors are already recognizing this. Turkey continues to attract sustainable strategic capital despite global volatility. Total FDI inflows reached around $13 billion in 2025. The country hosts around 87,000 international capital companies, provides access to approximately 1.3 billion consumers within reach, and recorded 351 greenfield FDI projects. Turkey offers legal protection, treaty coverage, and competitive taxation, while directing incentives towards sectors where global supply chains, technology platforms, and capital allocation are increasingly focused. And after all of this, history, economy, geography, capital, and investment, we return to the most important multiplier, women. This is where our opening story comes back. The Republic granted women early political rights. The next phase is translating that legacy into broader economic participation. First, workforce. So the opportunity is clear. Higher participation can unlock a larger productive capacity for the economy. Second, entrepreneurship. Women represent around 18% of entrepreneurs, and there are roughly 1.2 million women operating as employers. This is already a meaningful base, but there is still significant room to scale female-led business formation. Third, leadership. Women on board in Borsa Istanbul listed companies increased from 16% to 19%. That is progress, but it remains below the Capital Markets Board 25% target. Fourth, investment. The share of women investors rose from 23% to 35%. This is important because women are not only entering the workforce, they are also becoming more visible as capital market players. So the direction is positive, the gap is still meaningful, and the upside is measurable. Turkey's story is not only about geography, economy, food, TV series, or growth. It's about transformation. From the symbolism of Kibele to the Republic's modernization, and from today's diversified economy to a technology-driven future, one thread holds. production, resilience, and continuity. If Anatolia was once the mother of civilizations, modern Turkey now represents a new generation of growth, dynamic, adaptive, and powered by human capital. Not only in Turkey, but around the world, because every economy has untapped potential, and in many cases, that potential is women. Women who build businesses, women who lead institutions, women who invest, women who innovate, women who create opportunities not only for themselves, but for future generations. If we want stronger economies, more resilient societies, and a more prosperous world, the next chapter depends on how fully we activate our potential. And women are at the core of that next phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamir Hanım. Really very good analogies. And Turkey, the magical thing about Turkey is that Turkey has always been very successful to strike the delicate balance between utilizing its millennia-long heritage as well as keeping this transformational dynamic going through. So we have heard a lot about Turkey's potential, Turkey's economical outlook, but as we all know, the real strength of an economy, the real power of an economy lies in the field, lies in the ground. It comes from SMEs, it comes from entrepreneurs, it comes from the ability to transform, ability to adapt to the change. Now I would like to turn to someone who's just sitting in the middle of this change for many years. So please welcome Sibel Kaya, Executive Vice President responsible for SME banking at Garanti BBVA. Sibel Hanım.
So, good afternoon. I'm just looking to Irene's eyes. Do you have enough time, Irene? Sorry for that, but I will try to be fast, as can I do. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Minister Şimşek and Minister Göktaş, and dear guests, welcome to Istanbul. It's a big honor to host you in Turkey for Global Summit of Women, and I'm very excited to be here. I will explain SMEs, entrepreneurs, and women entrepreneurship, but I am responsible from all of these in Garanti BBVA, but I am not here just because of the responsibility, because it is the fact for the Turkish economy, Turkey's economy. So I will try to explain Turkey's growth engine with some slides. I have some slides. So when we talk about economic growth, we often think about large corporations, major investments, and big industries. But in reality, the resilience of an economy is built from the ground up. So I would like to frame Turkey's growth story through three connected engines. SMEs as the backbone of the economy, entrepreneurs as the force of transformation, and women entrepreneurs as one of the most powerful growth multipliers for the future. Whenever we talk about Turkey's economy, we must start from SMEs, because they are not only the simple part of the economy, they are the backbone of the economy. According to Turkstat, SMEs account approximately 97% of all enterprises in Turkey. Within this group, 91% as micro SMEs. This clearly shows us the scale of the opportunity and the importance of continued support to them to grow stronger. They provide nearly 70% of employment and generate a significant share of value added and turnover. But their importance goes far beyond these numbers. When a small business grows, it protects jobs, it supports families, it strengthens local communities, and ultimately, it strengthens economic resilience. It is directly connected to inclusive and sustainable growth. That is why supporting SMEs is not only a business agenda, it's a national growth agenda. What gives me confidence about Turkey's future, is not only the size of our economy, it is the adaptability of our people. Turkey has a young, dynamic, and highly capable population, a strong industrial base, growing technological capabilities. Over the years, Turkish businesses have successfully navigated global crises, pandemics, earthquakes, and periods of uncertainty with remarkable resilience. I believe this resilience is one of the Turkey's greatest competitive advantages. At the same time, Turkey's strategic position at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa creates important opportunities for business to access new markets and growth corridors. This is why I believe in SMEs are not only the backbone of the economy, they are also one of the main engines of Turkey's future growth potential. But today, SMEs are operating in a much more challenging environment than before. In Turkey and globally, small businesses are facing several pressures at the same time. Access to finance, increasing costs, more global competition, changing customer expectations, and rapidly evolving regulation. On top of these, they are also facing two major transformations, which are green and digital transformation. For many SMEs, these transitions may first appear as a challenge, but in reality, they are also historic opportunity. Companies that adapt early can become more efficient, more competitive, and more connected to global markets. So the question is no longer only whether SMEs can survive. The real question is whether they can transform fast enough to grow in the next economy. Today, competitiveness is not based on just price or quality. It is also about sustainability, speed, efficiency, data, and adaptability. This is especially important for Turkey because in Europe is our largest largest goods export market. That means sustainability is not an abstract concept for many Turkish SMEs. It's becoming a business necessity. Carbon footprint, energy efficiency, and sustainability production models are now part of competitiveness. At the same time, digital transformation is accelerating. AI, automation-driven systems help companies reduce waste, optimize energy use, improve productivity, and make faster decisions. So, green and digital transformation should not be seen separately. They are together. They are two sides of the same competitiveness agenda. All of this brings us to entrepreneurship. Every year, around 120,000 new businesses are established in Turkey. This is very important because entrepreneurship is becoming one of the strongest drivers of the economic transformation. In the past, growth usually required large infrastructure, large organizations, but today, technology allows even very small companies to compete globally. A startup with a small team can access international customers, use AI tools, automate operations, and scale much faster than before. Turkey has significant strengths in this area. We have talented engineers, we have highly skilled technology professionals, we have ambitious young entrepreneurs who are quick to adopt new technologies and global trends. But entrepreneurship is not only entrepreneurship is not important just because it creates new businesses. Entrepreneurs also existing business transforms. They introduce new technologies, they bring fresh ideas, they solve problems, and they accelerate innovation across entire industries. So for Turkey, entrepreneurship is not only about starting new businesses, it is about turning transformation into growth. For these reasons, as Garanti BBVA, we see banking not only as providing financing, but as a long-term partnership. We focus their needs, which are underlined in 4 main pillars. First, through our technology entrepreneurs service model, we are trying to understand their needs, and we are trying to serve them in our brands because their needs are different from other customers, other SMEs. Second, we focus on strategic collaborations. We see startups not only as customers, but as partners whom we can create value together to our customers, to our economy. So with our program, Garanti BBVA Partners Stack, we provide them mentorship, training, visibility, collaboration opportunities, and financial solutions. And the third one, through ecosystem collaborations, we trying to support the entrepreneurs to access the right networks and global opportunities. And the fourth one, we support startups in becoming investment to make them ready for the investment roadshows. And all of these make we should talk about, when we talk about entrepreneurship future, we should talk about the women entrepreneurs. Because women entrepreneurs represents one of the Turkey's greatest opportunities for inclusive and sustainable growth. This is not only a social issue, this is an economic issue, economic growth issue, an innovation issue, and competitiveness issue, and a development issue. The big picture is very clear. Women make up almost half of Turkey's population, yet female labor is not there. To increase this number, one of the most powerful ways to close this gap is through entrepreneurship. Over the years, we have seen an important transformation in Turkey. The share of women entrepreneurs is growing. It's increased from 5 to 12%. But I believe the real opportunity is still ahead of us. We see that more women are entering technology, AI, sustainability, fintech, health tech, and e-commerce. And many of these businesses are born global. They are scalable, technology-driven, and internationally connected from day one. Over the last 20 years, we have had the privilege of meeting thousands of women entrepreneurs across Turkey, from different sectors, from different cities, and from different stories. And we see that the impact goes far beyond business itself. When women grow businesses, they create employment, inspiration, social transformation, and stronger participation in economic life. That is why we strongly believe that when women grow businesses, economies grow stronger. For this reason, Garanti BBVA, we are supporting women entrepreneurs for a long time. So we are focusing on beyond financing, because over time we learned a very important lessons. Financing is not necessary. It is important, but just financing is not necessary. But women entrepreneurs also need another things. They need more. Women entrepreneurs need education, mentorship, visibility, networks, market access, and strong ecosystems. That is why our model focused on 4 pillars: access to finance, education and capacity building, visibility and encouragement, access to markets. In the last 5 years alone, Garanti BBVA has provided nearly $8 billion to the women entrepreneurs. And we are trying to train women with our Women Entrepreneurs Academy. Our Women Entrepreneurs competition has received 50,000 applications. And for the access to markets with the Kagidar Trade of Women platform, we have 4,000 buyers and suppliers at that platform. But the most meaningful part is not only the numbers. It is seeing women entrepreneurs become employers, exporters, innovators, and role models. The future of growth, as I conclude, I would like to leave you with a final thought. The future of growth will not be built only through capital. It will be built through people, through SMEs that continue to transform, through entrepreneurs who dare to innovate, and through women whose potential is still far greater than what we see today. Our responsibility is to make sure they do not build it alone. At the greatest Anatolian philosopher Rumi said once, a candle does not lose anything from the lightening by other candles. For 20 years, we have seen how true that is. I will also like to sincerely thanks to Irene and Global Summit team and also the host committee that they made this story true in Turkey. Thank you very much.
Sibel Hanım, thank you very much for the inspiring presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to use the upcoming 10 minutes for a Q&A session with His Excellency Mehmet Şimşek. So I would like to invite him on the stage again. Mr. Şimşek, please. So I'm opening the floor to questions. There are some microphones around the venue, so if anyone would like to ask a question, please raise your hand, identify yourself, and then use the microphone. Thank you.
Okay.
It's always very hard to ask the first question, so let's see.
I take the floor. I don't know how this opens here. Give me 1 sec. You're on? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now, thank you. So, my name is Hülya Kurt. I'm coming from Switzerland, but I'm Turkish. I'm the immediate past president of Organization Women International Trade, chair of Women President Organization, and also a business owner. And I'm in women's matters since years. And what I strongly believe, this is great, and we love all the figures, and this is really awesome. Though, my concrete question is, we need to accelerate and foster women's growth and open trade corridors for every woman entrepreneur, might be in public or private sector. How can we accelerate to building these bridges and giving access to market, capacity building, even more so in the age of AI, in the age of everything that is going so quick, to even more increase visibility and also fostering peace and growth. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. No country can fly with one wing. We need women entrepreneurs, we need women labor force, and I can't say we're doing that well. But there is progress. So across the board, there is an effort in terms of, let's say, affirmative action, meaning we do actually get the banks to focus on women entrepreneur. And treasuries occasionally reaches out to some of the MDBs, these multinational development banks, and we secure concessionary funding, and we do actually get the banks to use that funding to encourage women entrepreneurs. Our family affairs, social affairs minister is here. Clearly, recently, the parliament has adopted a number of steps to help women to stay active in the labor force, in business, from maternity leave to all sorts of other additional steps. So I don't want to take too much time to provide more space for additional questions, but you're spot on. We need to progress, make more progress, but there is a commitment. Why? Because without women we cannot achieve our potential. Very simple. And that's why, our per capita GDP relative to EU is low. The only way we can catch up is to get more women into labor force, to get more women as entrepreneurs, and we believe we can do that. And we're going to continue to provide incentives and to continue to push for additional reforms to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question, please. And could you please move to the microphone for the next question? Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, congratulations. I was here for the last summit in Turkey, and it's so impressive. And you were there, and you were welcoming us. My name is Nancy Gomez. My topic now is wellness and tech. And back in France, because I'm French, I saw the figures about medicine and tourism medicine here. It's really impressive, so we are considering Turkey now. It really is changing our path. But I would like to know how open you are to innovation in medicine, because more and more we have allopathic medicine, and then you have holistic medicine it's larger. In some countries, we cannot push further because it's too advanced. We have AI machines, we have ways of resolving, and well, our subject is longevity, so we go to fields that in some countries it's forbidden. So how it's in Turkey for this kind of medicine?
Well, thank you. Look, I'm not an expert on the regulatory framework, I have to say. But to the extent that I'm familiar with internal discussions, I think Turkiye is open, relatively speaking. When it comes to medical services access coverage-wise, the state is quite generous. And to make it sustainable, I think the only way forward is to enable AI-driven, efforts, but also innovation. So what I'm trying to say is this: we have a universal healthcare coverage. It doesn't matter whether you are paying premiums or not. Everyone is entitled to healthcare, whether you go to state hospitals or private hospitals. There is coverage. So this is quite a generous system. But to make this sustainable financially, but also coverage-wise, I really think that we have no choice. But even if we are not, at par with global best practices, I think we need to be more open to innovation. And also, again, all this work on longevity. So I'm happy to find out from the healthcare ministry in terms of rules and regulations, because I don't know exactly what you're alluding to. But I would say that this place remains open. There's now a very strong focus on biotechnology, on synthetic biology, AI aspects of it. So clearly this is one big area going forward, because I think if we're going to live longer, we have to adapt, and the system has to adapt. And that's where, what you're suggesting comes in. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have a nice cue by the microphone, so thank you very much. And I think this is all the questions that we can take, so I really... Okay.
We'll take more until 4:30.
Okay. Irene is the...
Irene is the boss. If she allows, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Ukulo Umarova, and I'm a 16-year-old AI entrepreneur from Kazakhstan. I'm founder of Söyle AI. Our AI helps make speech understandable for people with speech impairments from 300 conditions like Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, and post-stroke conditions, like translators from foreign languages, but with speech impairments. And my question is, how does Turkey support medtech startups, and how can we launch pilot projects in Turkish hospitals and access anonymized voice data set for AI training?
Well, thank you. It's a very good question. I think you have a minister here. Maybe you could reach out and she could seriously hold your hand, I don't know, direct you. Healthcare, certainly we need to reach out to them. So as you can see, I'm finance minister, so I'm not an expert on everything. So I don't really know all these specifics, but we're happy to help you to see if we could get your product launched here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Please.
Hello, thank you very much for being here and helping all these women around the room. A quick one. I'm Gwenelle Montagnier. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I specialize in helping SMEs to scale up and grow internationally. Now, I arrived 3 days ago. I rented a car and I went around the country just to figure out what Turkey is about. And to your point, I was extremely impressed with the infrastructure, a lot from highways to, speed control, and I will probably curse it when I come back to Canada. My only concern I saw was the very low level of English capability of a lot of people I bumped into. So if we want to help Turkish companies to grow, it is very critical that, whether we like it or not, there is a very strong mastering of English so that people can grow. And unfortunately, it seems to be a bit lacking everywhere I went to. So I wanted to know, how is your education system integrating this within your main economic framework to grow the country?
Thank you. This is really a very important deficiency that we have. And you're spot on, by the way. I learned Turkish when I started primary school. My mother tongue is Kurdish. I'm a Kurd, ethnically. So I learned Turkish at school when I started primary school. I struggled in my first couple of years, but then I picked up. And I couldn't speak a word in English because back then, obviously, there was very limited, resources. But today, really, the system has changed. So what I'm trying to say is that the old generation, unfortunately, are not good at, foreign languages, and in particular English. But the new generation, most likely, they're pretty competent. I'm speaking in general. Even though AI will help us communicate, or eliminate language barriers soon, you're going to speak in English and I'll hear you in Turkish. But this is a deficiency that we have. So the way we've changed the system is that in the past, in the first 5 years of schooling, there was no English language, classes. But now we have introduced preschool schooling and language from there onwards. If you go back to 20 years ago, preschool schooling, was running at like literally 12%. Today it's over 70% from 3 years onwards, 3, 4, 5 years onwards. So we've expanded schooling. The quality is improving. If you look at PISA exam results, we have caught up with EU averages. So we're making good progress. But you're right, there is a major stock of human capital that unfortunately missed on those opportunities. So how do we make up for that? Well, as I said, AI hopefully will help fill the gap, but I still believe, and the way you're suggesting it, that I think everyone should learn, at least a language, because it helps really with brain development, analytical thinking, and all sorts of stuff. So unfortunately, it is one missing link. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please.
Hi, my name is Shireen. I'm a business student. I'm one of the selected scholars. I have great appreciation for the work that the minister does. We have previously met in the World Decolonization Forum, if I'm not wrong. I have a question in regards, I know that you had a conversation with Richard Werner, who was visiting, and he touched upon the microeconomics. I was curious to know about how small and medium enterprises are going to be benefiting from the microcredits that are being given out, and how we can accelerate acknowledgement that these microcredits exist within the country, so those who are actually in need can get some benefit from those resources. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a number of SME programs. One major issue typically with SMEs is access to finance. And this is one area where, certainly we have to put more resources and effort. And we appreciate private sector banks, but of course there's also Halk Bank that does work with micro businesses. And we do provide quite a bit of subsidy, I would have to say, not only for farmers through Ziraat Bank, but also to really very small companies or single-person businesses, micro businesses through Halk Bank. So that's one area. I think digital transformation is going to be a major boost to everyone, but in particular to SMEs, because without some degree of AI, let's say proficiency or literacy, I think we're going to continue to struggle. So that's why Minister of Industry is working on a program, on a nationwide, scalable program, to see how we can help, in particular small businesses to obviously benefit from digitalization, so that there is a productivity boom. How do you actually sell goods globally? It's hard, but with the help of digital platforms, with the help of AI, language barriers can be overcome. I think in today's world, whichever app you're using, whether you're using Anthropic or the Google version or OpenAI version, there's so much help out there. And so I'm optimistic, but we cannot sit there and wait for SMEs to become competent and proficient. I think we need to help them, and we need programs to help them. So as Minister of Finance, we're happy to provide resources, not only to have access to finance, which is key, but also to achieve a degree of digital transformation. So yes, it's on our kind of like, program. We just need to speed things up and deliver.
Thank you. And I think as much as I see the final question, please go ahead. And also a couple of there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here and being a strong supporter of women in business in Turkey. One of my question is, my name is Denise Rutherford, I'm the CTO at Velcro. One of the things I've seen as I've moved around the world is access to affordable and safe childcare is extremely important for women to remain in the workforce and to be able to sustain a birth rate in the country. I wonder if your ministry and others within the government are considering how to improve access and affordability of childcare in Turkey, as in many countries. I assume it's equally challenging here.
This is probably the most significant factor in bringing more women into labor and, of course, business. So you, I think, highlighted the most critical aspects. We do have some requirements for businesses of certain size and public sector to have daycare, nurseries, compulsory. But I think we need to expand that. Now, I met a minister from Canada some times ago, and they were telling me about the great, initiatives or project that they successfully implemented. So when I came back, I actually suggested my other colleagues to look into Canadian experience to see if we could replicate that. Now, of course, it requires resources, but I really believe that that resource would be, it would be well worth spending. So yes, I think some progress has been made, but we need to do more on childcare, nurseries. Clearly, this is one of the key impediments to returning to workforce or staying in the workforce. Yes, we agree on that.
Thank you. Irene, should we conclude? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. And with this, I would like to conclude the session. And I would like to especially thank Mr. Minister being with us and sharing his ideas and perspective. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Şimşek, really pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.